All right, so here we are, guys. We are at this $36,000 area. Well, Bitcoin is right now 35.5, fluctuating between this red support and this black trend line. I do believe that we will come back up above this black trend line and close above it today. Remains to be seen, of course. But being that we are almost 20, we were 20 on the RSI a few uh, minutes ago. And that rarely ever occurs in the history of Bitcoin. In fact, I can zoom out here and show you the number of times that has occurred. And this is the daily chart. So the last time we were at 20 or below 20 was in when the pandemic started, of course. And then we hit some oversold territory. That didn't quite hit 20, but in September of 19. All right. And then over here in November 18. All right. So that's what? 4 times in the past 3 years. And then over here, 15 and that was in 2015. So 5 times in the last 6 years. That's about how frequently we hit that level on the RSI. Greatly oversold. And along with that, that corresponds with this hugely significant black trend line I've drawn. And like I said, admittedly have been skeptical or doubted that we would get to that area even. But here we are. 36,000 almost precisely. Again, this black trend line comes way back from, let's see, I started drawing this in September of 19, October of 19. And guys, about now I'd say 3 or 4 weeks ago, I posed a question regarding this head and shoulders pattern that I had spotted but was ignoring. I really never got a direct answer from anybody, or at least a sufficient answer from my view, on whether I should be ignoring this head and shoulders pattern or not. I mean, one person said no, I shouldn't be ignoring it, but provided no data as to why I should not be ignoring it. The reason I was ignoring it is because of this malformed or not fully formed right shoulder. And I'm truthful with you. I just don't have enough experience. I haven't seen such a small right shoulder often enough to know whether that invalidates the head and shoulders pattern or not. So I posed the question, is this a legitimate head and shoulders pattern? Should I pay attention to this or should I not? I chose to ignore it. Now, that's a big risk because 85% of the time, if it's a legitimate head and shoulders pattern, then these patterns play out to the downside. That's a big probability, one of the biggest of all patterns in the market. And I usually pay attention to this. In this case, not only was it that small right shoulder that caused me some pause, but unfortunately, guys, I haven't been doing what I do best, and that's to ignore all the noise. Now, since I started this channel, I have a lot of smart subscribers that follow me, and they pass on all sorts of data to me. And I like to consider the data, but should I consider it? Because in this case, I believe it clouded my view. Not necessarily the data from my subscribers, but I kept talking a lot about Glassnode on chain data, specifically referring to up to the minute analysis on illiquidity and it being at an all time high. Now, that's $800 premium data. I thought I should respect that. I should use this as a large variable. But maybe I respected it a little too much and it cost me, all right? Because if I can just ignore expert opinions and professional analysis and all of this premium pay for data, if I can cast that aside and just do what I've always done here on TradingView using free tools, really no more than free tools, it's these pay for tools that get me in trouble, um, such as Crypto Faces, Market Cipher B. Everybody says that the true pros have to use that. Well, that's one of the tools that I used that unfortunately it clouded my bias to a more optimistic or bullish perspective. that data along with the data from Glassnode. All right. So if illiquidity is at an all-time high of 77, 78%, how did this happen? I wouldn't even have thought of it in the past. I would have just seen this head and shoulders pattern. Yeah, that's a head and shoulders pattern. I would have measured it up. I would see where we're going to go. And I wouldn't consider all this other bullshit, really, is what it is. Bullshit that you have to pay for. All right, so let's measure this head and shoulders pattern. And excuse me if I seem a little bit bitter, but it's true. You guys got to be careful about what content you actually pay for. These guys that claim to be pros and that claim to be experts, these are the guys that I was listening to. All this data that you pay for that's supposed to give you an inside edge. Nah, it doesn't give you an inside edge. What gives you an inside edge is doing what we do here. And you can do all this with the free tools. Let's measure this head and shoulders pattern and place the line. You know what I do, where we broke out, and see where we're actually going. All right, I'm going to have to zoom out here, which I will do. It takes us right to this brown line. You see that, guys? So do you think we're going to go down there? I don't know. If I consider data from like Glassnode, I would say no way. But I can't do that. You can see I went wrong doing that. All right. So I'm not looking at Glassnode. I'm going to not really even pay attention to all that stuff. And I'm going to try to do analysis the old fashioned way, the way I used to do it. And that seems to suggest that we could actually go down to that level. Now, that's with my lack of knowledge and lack of understanding about this small, malformed right shoulder. I still don't know. And please help me, guys, so I don't have to learn through experience. Is this a legitimate head and shoulders pattern or not? If you know, do you have supporting data that can prove that it is or isn't? And what is the historical basis for this pattern playing out? What is the probability? What is the ratio of times? Where do we go? Is it the fact that because that's a smaller right shoulder, we only go halfway down? That would make sense because we hit that $36,000 level, and now the head and shoulders pattern has played out in this case because it's a smaller right shoulder. Or does that not matter? Is this just a valid head and shoulders pattern? And we go all the way down to that brown trend line down there at around $23,000, $24,000. All right. I don't know. And I don't want to learn the hard way. So if you guys have the answers, please let me know. I have been hard pressed to find that data. And I know I have a lot of smart followers here on TradingView and YouTube and Twitter. And you guys, please pipe in. Let me know. I don't want to learn the hard way on this. All right. So current price action. We're sitting right on this line, or I suspect we will be sitting on this line at the end of the day. Again, if we don't close above this black trend line, then we need to be very careful and cautious that this head and shoulders pattern will play out. Of course, we need another candle here on the daily, opening and closing below the black trend line, and preferably on crypto. I like to see three candles opening and closing below. Why on crypto? Because there's really no open and close of the market. It's open 24/7. So that for that reason, I like to see three candles opening and closing before or above a significant trend line. All right, so if we get those two other candles tomorrow and the next day opening and closing below this black trend line, that spells trouble. Um, Again, casting all that other bullshit data aside, we have to look at the technicals. The technicals then are telling us we're going to go to 24,000. And it's suggesting at this point with these two candles that this is a valid head and shoulders pattern that we pay attention to. All right, let me get rid of those. But if we close above this black trend line today, as I suspect, then I do expect us to bounce again, possibly going all the way up to this blue and purple intersection and then maybe coming down again. And who knows, do we break through at that point, or do we bounce at that point and continue up? Remains to be seen. And again, um, I am learning on this one through experience, and I don't like doing that. I'd rather learn through somebody else's experience. So if you guys have it and would want to share that with us in the comments section, we would all benefit and we would all greatly appreciate that. For now, I believe we have hit an area of strong support. We should see a little bit of bounce going into next week. If we don't see that bounce, look out below. We are going all the way to this $24,000 area. And again, guys, that does make sense because when we broke through this black trend line, when we broke through our previous high of 20,000, we went straight up here and we sat on this black trend line for a little, but then continued up. We really never came back down and revisited that $20,000 area. And that's why you hear other analysts talking about that area, because typically, anytime you pass a significant area, the market likes to collectively return to that area and pay its respects and do something that I call kissing mama goodbye. And you guys all know about that, uh, I guess, theory or that analogy that I use. So it is possible that we return back to that, $20,000 area, which correlates with the data that this head and shoulders pattern suggests, and we return to that before we continue a bullish run. Uh, I don't know what's going to happen at this point, and really, I don't even know whether I'm going to sell if we do bounce from this black line and continue up. Because if we, if I try to sell into this strength, then what happens if we break this purple or this blue trend line? At that point, we'll be bullish, and I may have missed the bullish run, which is why I'm long at this point. Even I doubted we would get down to the $36,000 mark, and I wanted to be positioned for the bull cycle ahead. And for that reason, I have been staying long in this market. And so again, I don't know whether I would sell at this point. I think at this point, I just hold through and maybe store up a little bit of, save up a bit of cash. And if we were to, I'll have to see if we confirm our candles below this black trend line. That's a big flag of caution to me, and that's only confirming this head and shoulders pattern is actually going to play out to the full extent. Otherwise, if we don't close below this, then it could be that this small shoulder indicates halfway point of 36,000, and this is our bottom here. And I would believe that because of what the RSI on the daily is suggesting too, that we are greatly oversold. Anyways, guys, um, comment away, please. Any experience you have on these small or not fully formed right shoulders, please let me know. And we will talk to you in the next update. Stay safe out there, guys, as much as possible.